Today's artist is Zachariah. Based out of Nashville, Zachariah has made a name for himself as a bassist, producer, and artist. Welcome, Zachariah.
Hey, how's it
Hey
going?
man, how's it going, man?
I'm doing all right. How about y'all?
Doing good. So let's start back at the beginning. Where were you born and raised, and then how did music first enter your life?
I was born and raised in a super small town called Seven Springs, North Carolina. It's about an hour south of Raleigh, so East Coast, North Carolina. My mom tells me apparently music skipped a generation. So her and her siblings are not musicians, but some of my cousins play as well. But as far as personally, I grew up going to church. My mom worked at a church, and I remember like seeing the people on stage play. So I think that's where the interest started. My first instrument was actually drums.
Oh wow,
Then when I was like 4 or 5, and then um, in about third or fourth grade, I switched to bass.
nice. Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of music were you listening to as you were growing up? What kind of music was around you?
The music that was allowed was Christian music, or just like churchy gospel. I remember for a while my mom was listening to the Eternal Dance, which is a Earth, Wind and Fire box set. So that was always on repeat in the car. So like a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire, a lot of gospel stuff. But then me and the friends would like listen to the radio and see whatever pop music was on.
Nice. Yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's great for the bass part for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Even before I knew it, I was already kind of being programmed to like listen to good bass parts.
Yeah. Did you stick with drums too, or did just like kind of switch over to bass at that point?
It mostly switched over to bass. I honestly haven't touched drums in so long. I kept it up a little just for fun while I was going through high school, but once I moved to Nashville, it was all bass focused.
Gotcha. Did you ever perform in your younger years, like with the church or anything, or when did live performance first come into your bass playing?
I started playing with the church band. Um, I don't remember how old I was, probably middle school. I started playing with them. The music director at the time, if the drummer didn't show up, he had heard me. Since my mom worked at the church, whenever I would get done my homework, she would let me go like play the instruments. So he had heard me play drums. So sometimes he would throw me on drums or he would have me play bass. So that was like the first out and about with people. I ended up going to public school uh, when I got to 10th grade, and they had a marching band and stuff, so that was like another level of experience with other people playing out competitions and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. That's awesome. What did you learn by playing in the church band? And then what did you learn by playing in the marching band? Like, what did you take from those?
I think the most important thing I learned playing at church, the music director's name was Ken Eubanks. He had a band called Heaven Bound that was like an old Southern gospel group. I think he had done some work in Nashville, so he was teaching me numbers, like the Nashville number system is what they call it here. He told me that at a super young age, and I didn't know what it was. It was just like a shortcut way to learn music. Years later, I get to college, and like my senior year, they're teaching that to me again, and I was like, oh, like
Oh, wow.
I've been doing that all this time. For a while, he would write out the note names on paper and show it to me. Another huge thing he did to help was stopped writing charts. Like one day he was just like, you'll hear it. And so he kind of just like threw me in the fire and was like, your ear will get there. And it did. It helped a lot. Marching band, probably just learning how to play in an ensemble. I mean, there's so many pieces, so many different instruments there. Like knowing your part, playing it loud when you're supposed to, playing soft when you're supposed to, learning how to blend within a unit, and honestly just like work with 20 plus people to get one job done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important part, I bet, especially going forward into your career as like a producer and stuff, having to work with people. That's huge.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, i I grew up an only child, so naturally I would like to do a lot of things on my own, but that's not really the best way to go about everything. So yeah, working with people is necessary, very necessary.
Yeah. Now that's great. So after you had those experiences and you performed with those different groups, what was your next step? Like, how'd you move forward in your career as a bassist and producer and all that?
um so senior year of high school, my marching band teacher asked like, are you thinking about college? What would you want to go for? And at that time, I had no idea. I was really into basketball, so my plan was kind of just to like get on a team somewhere and just figure it out once I got to college. But then I tore my ACL, so that kind of went out the window. He told me about Belmont, which is here in Nashville, Tennessee. He said you can study music, which I had no idea about at the time. And then there was another church in Florida, or a college in Florida, that was affiliated with my church that I'd heard about. I auditioned at both of those. Belmont ended up sending me a little bit of scholarship. So I came here, did my 4 years, met a lot of people, um, had some like really close friends I played with a lot at Belmont. And essentially, some people say you pay for the connections more than the education at Belmont. Um,
Interesting.
so luckily, because I was like working my butt off in school and just playing as much as possible, some of those turned into gigs after college. So I was able to play with some of my best friends. And then from there, word spreads like, oh, this guy's good at bass. Here's his number. People randomly call me, hey, can you do this thing? So that I played at a few churches and really just get out there, show your face, meet people, learn from whoever you can learn from. Production is honestly very new for me. I had no interest in it at first. It was I really love hands-on, like everything before. So like pre-production and like tracking day, I love. But once everything was in the computer, I was like, I don't understand it. Leave me alone. I don't care. But after hanging out with a few of my friends that got into it, um, I caught the bug.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go back to Belmont for a second. With your college experience, a lot of musicians, they kind of wonder if it's worth going to school to be a musician. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, it depends on the route you want to go. And I'll say, for lack of a better term, it depends how big a nerd you are. Music is like a language um, that you can learn to speak in many different settings. So if you want to go to school and know the history, really learn about like chord structure and all this kind of stuff, I think it's a great environment. I mean, you're there 2 to 4 years straight, just like studying music, constantly talking music with your friends. Um, that's why I went. I really loved music, and I was like, I'll go see what I can learn about it. But I don't think it's necessary. I probably did feel that way at some point, but I have met so many people that just learned on their own or like learned at church or learned by ear. I think the only lack that comes there sometimes is detail. Like if I play these three notes, it's say it's a F minor. Maybe some people don't know how to call it that, but they know what it sounds like. So I think that's the biggest gap that happens between like schooled and unschooled is just learning how to speak to each other. But school is expensive. So
Yeah, that's true. And
I,
especially for like musicians who don't have money as it is.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, looking back on it now, I'm glad I went. It's definitely paying off. Um, but if somebody asked me this question and they weren't in school, I'd ask, what do you want to do with music? Where are you with music right now? Financially, school is expensive, with that information, do what you will.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great advice. I love that. Do you feel like school contributed to your ability to produce later, or did that kind of not really have a huge effect on that? Like just outside of bass?
Yeah, so my emphasis is what they call it at Belmont was performance, which means I take all the core classes, but then I had a few extra lesson credits. I had a studio class and something else. There was another emphasis for music technology, which kind of like lends you or leads you into production. They start showing you different kind of DAWs, different plugins. There's a class called like music for media where you just pretty much get a silent film and try to score something for that. I didn't take that, but I had a few friends who did. I think my want to get into production really heavily came just 2 years ago. There's a venue/bar in Nashville called Flamingo. And on Sunday nights, there was this DJ producer named Gates, who was just spinning his own beats. He was just playing his own original music mostly. And people would come in and freestyle. Sometimes he would have Daru Jones come play drums. And I met him and talked to him, and he told me like, yeah, this is all my music. I'm just a producer. And I was like, I love the way this sounds. I want to figure out how to do it. So honestly, like meeting Gates and just seeing him do his thing is really what like really turned me on to like wanting to be a producer myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what about your career before, between Belmont and being a musician? So it sounds like you went off to play bass with a lot of different people. Was
Mhm.
there a single time that you can think of where it's like all of a sudden it clicked? Like there was one show where things started really picking up for you, or did it kind of just gradually grow into being something that it became?
The first show that comes to mind, it's kind of like a two for one situation. I was playing with this band called Dynamo. It's like a local like jazz fusion thing, some of my best friends. And there was an artist there that was like my favorite local artist, just standing on the side of the stage at the 5 spot watching. After the set, he looks at my friend Ryan, who was in the band, and goes like, what's this dude's problem? Like, why is he so good? And to hear like Mike say that about me, I had known about Mike for so long. And Mike was essentially asking like, why did I not know Zach? Like, why didn't I know he existed? So after, I mean, that show was so much fun. Dynamo was like some of my best friends, so I always loved playing with them. But after that, Mike and I just, started being friends, started seeing each other at shows, talking a little more. And eventually he asked me to play with him, which I never, ever, ever thought would happen.
Wow.
He's always had some of the best players in town in his band, guys that are like on the road with you name them. Love playing with Mike. Everybody loves playing Mike's gig. So for him to ask me and me know who had played the gig previously was huge. And then I played a few shows with him, and honestly, like my Instagram kind of blew up. My Facebook, I got a bunch of requests. People like knew who I was and knew what I sounded like. Um, and it's honestly like a high level local gig. Mike has
Yeah.
done, he's a touring musician himself, but every time he puts on a show in town, people know like you need to go see this Mike Hicks show. So for me to be able to do that and people be able to hear me in that setting was huge.
That's awesome. How many, how's your live experience been for yourself? I mean, you started out playing live back when you were in middle school.
Mhm.
Have you ever been nervous, or have you always been super confident on stage? Like, how has that been and how has that grown for you?
Uh, I don't know if this is normal or weird, but on stage, I am very in the moment, like with the people I'm there with. I used to have this thing where like I didn't really see faces in the crowd just because I'm so focused on like listening to the band and reacting to the artist. So on stage, I'm good to go. Before and after is where the nerves are for me. Before, I just hate waiting to like go out there and like see the first initial glimpse of like whoever's out there. And then after, I'm pretty introverted, so after shows, I don't love like walking through huge crowds and like having a lot of conversations with people I don't know. But over the years, I've learned how to deal with the nerves on both sides of the show. Um, Learned how to be better and more engaged on stage. Um, I toured with some right after college. I was in like a hardcore like rock, hardcore, metal, whatever kind of band, and we did a lot of tours together that were, I mean, you're just like part of the city that day. You just go in, you meet people. If you don't have a place to stay, you try to make a friend and like sleep on their floor or whatever.
Awesome.
So that gave me a lot of experience with just like talking to people and just like making friends at a random show in a random city.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's good to hear about those experiences.
Yeah.
So I saw recently on your Instagram that you posted about 2020, and you said that you had nationally televised shows, or at least appearances scheduled and stuff.
Yeah.
Have those, like when you hear announcements like that as, a performer, does it feel like something that's natural to you, or does it feel like, wow, what am I getting myself into? Like, what's kind of that experience for you to be taking these next big steps that come up?
Yeah, I had a friend ask me recently what that was like what was recording for TV like. I had never been on TV before 2020. 2020 comes, and whenever things started to loosen back up again, I started getting those calls almost exclusively. So it's kind of weird to not have done it before. And then last year I was on TV probably like 4 or 5 times with a few different artists. But because everything was shut down, we did a lot of the recordings. It was pre-recorded in Nashville. So I didn't go to like LA or New York for the actual late night show or whatever. So it kind of felt like a normal gig where I just load in town, show up with my gear, set it up. The only thing different was like, I mean, COVID, like there was only a certain amount of people there.
Yeah.
We played the song a few times, recorded it, and they were like, all right, thanks, good job. So the day of, it felt pretty normal. What happens is like seeing yourself on TV and realizing like anybody anywhere can see you. That's where it like started to sink in. Like my mom is watching this in North Carolina. Family is watching this in New Jersey. I have friends from like New York, like, yo, did I just see you on blah, blah, blah? And then whenever I got to post about it, people would like text me like, dude, this is crazy. Like I saw you at my house. I was watching you on TV. So yeah,
Amazing.
that's the wild part.
Yeah. So it's not like what happens before, it's what happens after, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Crazy. That's awesome though. Yeah, congrats. I mean, it's cool to see all these big moves coming up for artists, and people like you, how, opportunities come up after you work hard and keep at it.
Yes, it is very nice to physically see things pay off. A musician, I've been talking about this with a few people, but uh, being a musician, you don't just sign up for a certain job. It's not like I sign up to play arenas this year. You just put in work from the time you pick up the instrument, and then I kind of said you practice for years to hopefully get on a $200 gig. It's
Yeah.
you work any other job, you sign up, you work 2 weeks, you're probably going to make more than $200. But music is a thing where, you just keep building, keep building. You have to lay the foundation, and then after a while, I'm able to say like I had a few TV gigs this year.
That's awesome. So what would you say, like during the hard times that obviously come up for every musician, and all those self-doubts, what keeps driving you to do music and be a musician?
I had a few times where I've worked jobs when things were low, and every time I get a job, gigs show up. That's just my story. I know it's not that way for everybody, but I've always loved the music language. I've even gone as far to say to some people, like if I had to speak English or music, I'd probably give up my voice. Like
Wow.
it's communicating with music, like without words, being able to do that, it's like a universal thing. Like I could go to any country and like bang on a drum and people would understand what that is. So I think during the tough times, just knowing that for me, I look at it as a gift. Like God gave me this gift, this interest. Um, it's not something I chose, but it is something I enjoy. I like love doing it. So that always pushes me. The fact I have so many close friends that I just want to make music with, like on a gig or just sitting in a house, like it's just fun for us to do. Um, Another thing I've had to like learn is I I am Zachariah. I am a person before I am a musician. So whenever I don't have music work, I think a lot of us get like attached to our jobs outside of music as well. So being able to separate like the person and the work is also really important. So whenever heavy things come, it's like, okay, I'm still this person. Like I'm still Zachariah. I can still have a good day even though I don't have music work. So yeah, in hard times, friends, recognizing that it's a gift and recognizing that away from music, I'm still like a person.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's great advice. I mean, I love that part, especially about separating yourself from music and say it doesn't totally define you.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's tough, but I think it's necessary for all of us to see the difference.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's also like, as a musician, we're told you're going to be told no a million times. And I'm sure it's true for you too. So it's like, I think you have to say they're not really saying no to you as a person as much. It's just saying you need to kind of grow with your music and stuff. And there's a time and space for everything.
Yeah, it's a job. I mean, there are there are and there are not levels, but when there are, you know, you kind of have to work your way up just like any other job. So it's like, yeah, exactly what you said. They're not saying no to me, the person. They're just saying at this time, your resume does not line up with what we need.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon and maybe it'll be there, you know?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love hearing that. So when you got into production, how did you first get into production? Like, what were the first steps once you know, found your DJ friend and it really clicked with you? That's what you wanted to do. What happened next?
Um, a little backtracking. Before I met him, GarageBand, just get in there with a MIDI controller and see what sounds I put together. And then eventually I grew into Logic, which had a little better sounds. The DAW is like more interactive. You can do a lot more as far as like EQing and like processing or whatever. And then I met Gates. From there, it was like, how do I get good sounds? How do I get my ideas across the clearest? So a lot of talking to him, a lot of watching YouTube videos, and honestly just like a lot of trying and hearing really bad stuff and then being honest about it, like this is bad but I made it, so good job, I like made something, but how can I make this better? And so just like going back to the drawing board. I'm really hard on music, I'll admit. Like, so whenever I hear my stuff and then compare it to what I want it to sound like the radio stuff, um if it's not there, it's not there, and I just am like, I hate this, but it's just kind of like that driving force that keeps pushing. So a lot of asking questions, a lot of clicking through Splice, trying to get like really good samples. A lot of asking people, what samples are you using? What sound libraries are you using? How do you use this synth? A lot of questions, a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning how to have grace for myself after listening to a bad beat.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, a lot of asking people just how to go about this process.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like how you're talking about, you know, kind of like dropping your pride at first and realizing that you do need help as a beginning of a producer or starting that. Not only like asking the internet for questions, but actually asking people you know about questions and saying, look, I don't know this yet, but I need help. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, other people, learning to work with other people is necessary in so many different job fields. So even though like I am able to produce a full thing on my own from home, I don't always have all the information I need to do that. So then I have to learn how to like you said, drop the pride, hit up Gates, hit up whoever, and be like, yo, I really like what you're doing. How did you get there? How do I get this sound? And Nashville is a pretty nice city. Like people are always about the hang, about helping, about collaborating. So luckily here, usually asking people, you don't get any negative feedback or anything like sideways. It comes back at you. It's like, oh yeah, I just do this. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's something I've heard a lot about Nashville is just how welcoming everybody is. Cause I think a lot of the people start in the same boat where it's like you've all been the musicians who need help. And I think it's just one of those universally recognized things over there.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's Tennessee is still the South. It's kind of got that Southern feel to it, just like
Yeah.
neighbors saying hello and people helping people. Things are moving slow enough that we have time for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you first started producing after a bit, how did you start? Did you start like producing yourself first, or did you jump straight into producing for other people? Or at what point did you start producing for other people?
Um, I was only making stuff and putting it in Dropbox at first, just kind of like really trying to finish an idea. That's another thing I had a problem with. Like before I met Gates, I would have an idea and then I would hit a point where I was like, I know that other people are better at what I'm going for than I am. So I would say, I'll just wait till they can help me, which ended up, all of those things are probably still not finished today. So after I met Gates, it was kind of like a new determination, like finish a track, just like get all the way through, like have an intro, song form, and an end, bounce it, put it in Dropbox, and move on to the next thing. So I was really just trying to finish ideas and just put them in Dropbox, make different feeling tracks. And then I would show them to a few friends and say, like, what do you think about this? Do you think this is worth like somebody singing on or rapping on or listening to. And once I got enough consistent positive feedback, like, yeah, I love this, this is great. Then I would start showing it to a few artist friends. Um, I put out one song last year. I did not mean to be an artist at all. I just had an idea, and because the world was shut down, the easiest thing to do was to finish it on my own. So that's what I did. I wrote this whole song, produced it. I sent it off to somebody to be mixed, and then I had a friend that came over with his camera, and me and my roommates just like filmed a music video in the front yard.
Oh wow.
Um, and we put that out. I just did it for fun. Also, I did it to tell myself like you can complete a project. So for me, it meant a lot to like see it the whole way through. And now it's on Spotify and YouTube, and people can like watch and listen to it. So that meant a lot for me. Um, since then, I've had one other artist release a track of mine. We've been friends for a while. I was actually playing bass for him when he lived in Nashville. He's in Atlanta now. But I sent him a track just to listen to it. He was like, nah, I want this track. I'm putting it out on my next mixtape, which he did. Um, so it took a while for me to build up the confidence. But then once I got enough, like, yeah, this is good. Then I started sharing it with other people.
That's awesome. So do you have any advice for like when, so approaching like the money side, the business side of music, when should artists, and I'm thinking producers specifically, like when should they ask for money for their art, like to monetize themselves?
I just asked this somebody recently, um, because I have a lot of tracks just like sitting in a Dropbox. I was like, I don't know if I reach out to an artist or if they reach out to me. And what they said was like, if you reach out, you should probably pay them or work out whatever um, they agree to. But if they reach out to you, they're asking you for a service. Um, so they should pay you.
Like that.
So I think if the person wants to pay you, I say let them.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think it's the best thing. I mean, one thing I had to do was like, as a producer, a sideman, like musician, instrumentalist, um, know your worth and like claim your worth. Like somebody told me, like make a rate sheet, like write down on paper what you think people should pay you for this. And they were like, show it to me and I'll tell you if you're being too humble. Like, so yeah, just having people close to you that are honest with you and they're like, no, you deserve to be paid this. You've been doing this job for this amount of time at this level. So don't ask like $50 for, something you've been doing for a long time that you're good at. So I think, yeah, just I think that's a practical step. If you haven't done it already, make a rate sheet, write it down, and show it to a friend and ask them what they think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's perfect advice. I think some artists, they sell themselves short sometimes. And I think some artists on the other side of the coin, they decide to monetize before, they've had any experience at all. And, it's one of those things, it's just one of the questions.
Yeah, I think I mean music is so hard. It's like, well, art. Like if you paint something, how do you put a price on it, you know?
Yeah.
How do you tell somebody this painting is worth $500? Like because you say it is, I guess that's why. I mean, which is great. Like if you personally think it's worth that, I hope you get that and more for it. But I think as artists, like it's hard mentally sometimes to take something that's always been a hobby or just art for you and then tell people you owe me this amount of money for something I wanted to do anyway.
Absolutely.
Um, but I think it's music is our job. Art is our job. Everybody gets paid for their job. So you kind of just have to like, I don't know, stop being so nice about it and just be like, people should pay you for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So for any new artists that are thinking of moving to Nashville, what advice would you give to them?
Um, Come on in, hang out, be a normal person. Um, a lot of what they say in Nashville, there's like three things you like your checklist for gigs: money, music, and the hang. So money, obviously, if it's a good paying big gig. Music, if you enjoy playing the music or not. And the hang is just like the people, like, are you a cool person to hang around? Because if you get on a tour bus, you only play probably 2 hours tops a night, which means the other 22 hours of your day or whatever, when you're not sleeping, you're just hanging out, being a person. If people don't want to be around you, they're not going to want you on their tour. So when you come to town, like, at least in my friend group, we're just trying to hang out with people we like hanging out with. And then beyond that, if you're good at music, like, yeah, we'll make music with you. But sometimes people come in and they're just like, yeah, I'm trying to get on this gig. Like, how do I meet this person? Or blah, blah, blah. If if somebody talks to me that way, I may send you that direction if I know, but that's going to be my good deed for the day. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to hang out with people that are only chasing work from me. Like
Yeah.
you said, I am a musician, but I'm also a person. So if you come at me and you're only talking music, cool, like we can talk that, but when we're done, I'm not saying we're done, I'm not going to write you off, but that's that was the first impression. So I think when you get here, just hang out, make some friends, find some music circles that you like, ask questions, um, and be good at your instrument, whatever, practice, so that when you do get the opportunity, you don't fall short or you don't not perform as well as you would like to. Definitely be solid at whatever you're coming here to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you mentioned that it's almost part of the job when you get there to be a person.
Oh yeah,
And even though you're moving there for music most of the time, it's Nashville, but it's important to actually be the person that people want to be around. So you have to be yourself. I love hearing that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, with the band Dynamo I was in, there was like between 7 and 9 of us on a tour in a van, a 15 passenger van with 9 people is close quarters. And when you're gone for a week to 2 weeks to a month, you don't want to be that close with people you don't like.
Yeah.
So yeah, be honest, be yourself, um, because that's what people want to see. Um, but yeah, just be a good person, just hang out.
Yeah, I love that. What are you excited for that's coming up?
My girlfriend is working on an album and she is really, really good at music. Like, she asked me to play on it, and I told her, I was like, I will do this, but I have to practice a lot before we even go into the studio, which is not normal
Wow.
in Nashville. Her influences are like Hiatus Coyote and Robert Glasper, so like high
Yeah.
music harmony content.
Great.
I think it's going to be really cool. She's been working on it for a long time. Um, she's stoked about it. I'm stoked about that for her. My brother Josh and I started kind of a production duo called Blacklock. We've just been meeting artists. We started it during COVID quarantine, um, so that we could connect with artists still online. So we kind of started a contest on our Instagram just so we could honestly like hear our friends rap.
Yeah.
We make stuff, have them rap on it, and just like hear them. That's been fun. So we just got we're producing an EP for a girl, and this is our first time producing together. So that's going to be fun just to figure out how we work together in that environment. Um, I guess, I mean, it's still pretty early in the year, so excited. I've gotten a few tour offers, which I did not expect at this point. So excited to see what that's going to look like. If they'll stay booked as is, then I may be on the road again in September. As of now, um, yeah, just excited to keep making music and see what that's going to look like this year, especially with producing being such a new thing. This will be the first full, or whenever things open up, it'll be the first year as like producer in the public eye. So it'll be exciting to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be amazing. The stuff I've heard of you so far from what you produced sounds really good, and I think you're really tight. And I think it's a good outlook for you for this year. So I'm excited.
Dude, thanks. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, of course. So for the listeners listening, first off, what's your girlfriend's artist name so we can check out the album when it comes out and all that?
Yeah, her name is Cass Hart, CASSHART on Instagram. On Instagram, it's You Can Call Me Cass, CASS, all one word.
Perfect. And then what's your socials?
My socials are Blackxneck. It's BLACKXNECK. And then in my bio, there's a link to Blacklock, which is me and Josh, the production duo I was talking about, and my producer Instagram, which is produced by Blackxneck, PRODBY, and then Blackxneck, but it's all in the bio.
Awesome. Well, I've appreciated your time today. I've gotten a lot out of it, and I think a lot of other people too. I think your answers have been like super thought out and very thoughtful and very responsive. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the questions were great. This is like a normal conversation I would have with my friends, and
yeah, that's what we shoot for.
Yeah, the people I would want to hang out with on tours and stuff.